Clippard looking for a clean inning here in the 7th. Hit well out to right center field. Jones still on the move, running out of room, and he makes the catch!
Ortiz into deep right field. Back is Sheffield. We'll see you later tonight. Chance of a lifetime for Luis Gonzalez. 2-2, bottom of the 9th. Game 7 of the World Series. Bases loaded. Infield in. 1 out. Floater. Center field. The Diamondbacks are world champions.
Here's the pitch to him. A line drive down the right field line. That's headed into the corner. Sanders is over to play it. Eckstein's in. Erstad's in. Here comes Salmon. He scores. Garrett Anderson clears the bases.
One for Tyson. Batista with a drive. Deep left field. No doubt about it.
Welcome back to the Chasing 2 podcast. I'm Blake Friars, joined alongside Dylan Smith. In this episode, we're going to talk about the Blue Jays situation up north. I'll give an update on Rendon, Meadows, DeGrom, and Hicks. Also give an update on the Atlanta Braves situation. Bard making the opening day roster for the Colorado Rockies, hasn't pitched since 2013. He also dealt with the yips when he was with the Red Sox. They also released part of the super pen that they built a few years back. We'll also touch on the opening day matchups, New York Yankees versus the Nationals, Dodgers, and the Giants. And we'll also talk about matchups for the opening day, kind of games to watch, pitching matchups to watch. Also joining us on this episode is going to be Dave Coggan, former Phillies pitcher from 2000 to 2004. What a treat it was to hear from him. And Dylan, why don't you kind of tell us about Dave?
Yeah, I've seen it firsthand. This guy knows his stuff. I work with him every single day. Just a blessing to work with him. He knows his stuff. You do not want to miss this.
Okay, so the Blue Jays situation. I'm a Blue Jays fan, as you know. Everyone should know that by now. The Canadian federal government denied the Blue Jays to play their home games. It's kind of a messy situation. 3 days before they got the denial, they got approval to play there.
Yeah,
and then now it's
no
like
sense.
and now it was just like, all right, well, a week before opening day, you're gonna have to find a new home to play. So I like, it just doesn't really make sense to me. The possible landing spots, Dunedin, Buffalo. There's rumors of them going to Baltimore and playing in the home stadium. Like, you could go play in Pittsburgh. Like, I don't know. What do you think about this whole situation?
It's just a really crappy situation for one, but I think their best bet is Dunedin. It's a renovated facility, and they have their own stuff there. I wouldn't be going to Pittsburgh or Baltimore and using the Orioles stuff. Plus, then you're going to have two teams in location with the COVID testing. I don't know how that's all going to work. So I think Dunedin's their best bet. I understand why they would want to go to Baltimore because it's kind of closer to all the teams they play, the Nationals, Red Sox, Yankees. Braves kind of in the middle, but I understand why they'd check out on Baltimore, but I would say to go to Dunedin. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I think Buffalo's kind of an intriguing spot too. I mean, that's a AAA facility. There's reports that they're kind of getting ready for the Blue Jays just in case they have to use their field. They got some work to do there. I don't know. I just really feel bad for the Toronto Blue Jays players. I mean, guys like Travis Shaw who just signed there. Now you're going to be living in a hotel for a whole season. And, I mean, I just feel bad. Lots of guys have families. It's just a really shitty situation for everybody involved. But you want to hop into some injury updates?
Yeah, before we do that, I just want to say also, I'm pretty sure the Jays will take care of these guys.
Yeah.
They were already talking about, paying them compensation for having to stay in the hotel over by the Rogers Center. That they're really good about taking care of their guys.
Yeah, for
I'm sure they'll take, they'll take care of all these guys and put them up somewhere nice, and take care of their families, move them, pay off the leases that they had. They were already talking about doing this stuff. Injury update, Rendon, oblique, says he's fine. We don't know. He's not playing tonight against the Padres in the first exhibition game. Joe Madden also said he wouldn't confirm that he'd be ready for opening day, but Rendon himself says he'll be ready for opening day. DeGrom, MRI on his back, looked okay. He said he will be ready for opening day, so we will see a Soroka DeGrom matchup,
Yeah.
but he's going to be on an 85 pitch count.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then obviously Aaron Hicks had Tommy John last year. He's ready back in center field for the Yankees. And now we'll hop into a little bit of the Atlanta Braves situation. Last episode, we kind of talked about Freddie Freeman, how he might not be ready for opening day, and that would be a huge loss for the Atlanta Braves. But he is back. He's going to be ready for opening day, and it kind of was a double-edged sword for the Braves. They signed Puig last week. He tested positive for the coronavirus, and now he's without a contract. So kind of a sucky situation there for him. And other Braves news, Cole Hammels will not be ready for opening day. That was one of their big signings this offseason. But just reading the stuff that Freddie Freeman had to say, how he had to pray not to take him and how he had 104 fever, man, it was sickening to read. And I'm just happy that he's healthy because he's one of the best players in the league.
Yeah, Hammels dealing with that shoulder inflammation and the tricep tendonitis. Doesn't look good for them.
Definitely.
But going back to last episode, I was saying, hey, if Freddie Freeman's not ready opening day, this is a huge loss for the Braves.
It is.
And I could see them stumbling out of the gate. Well, guess what? I don't know how sharp he's going to be, but he's back. And he's going to be in that opening day lineup, I'm assuming, from what I've seen. And, Puig, I just feel bad for the guy.
Yeah.
His antics in the beginning, I think his antics were a little bit before his time. Because now we get the Juan Soto stare. Acuna's very flashy himself. When he came up with the Dodgers, everybody was like, they either loved the guy or hated the guy because he was playing with his own flair, his own cockiness.
Yeah.
It was a little bit before his time, but honestly, the game's more fun when he's on the field. So I feel bad for the guy. I hope he recovers. I understand why the Braves ended up terminating the whole deal and not going through with it. He's gonna have to test positive in 2 weeks. Then he's gonna have to get get ready to play games. He's about a month out, and there's only 60 games. So it makes sense not to pay a guy that you don't need to.
So you kind of had Atlanta on the outside wild card contender. Do you think with a healthy Freddie Freeman, do you think that puts them up there to contend for the division leader?
I think that they could contend for the division. Even going back to last episode, I said it was so close, that division.
Yeah, it was.
It's about health. It's about depth. They lost Markakis. Freeman, was dealing with COVID. And that's where I was leaning on the last episode. And now Hammels is out. So you have Soroka, Fulte, Fried. Not a bad rotation by any means. But and looking at the Phillies, they got Wheeler and Nola, and those are some pretty good arms over there.
For sure.
Stroman and DeGrom over in New York.
Yeah.
So, I still think they could win the division because they have some star players on that team. The pitching does scare me, but the bullpen's really good. The bullpen is really good. So maybe the bullpen, they'll ride the tails of the bullpen and give them another
guy we should elaborate on is Austin Meadows. We kind of touched on that. He tested positive for the coronavirus. Just kind of talk about that's going to be a huge loss. If he's out for 2-3 weeks to start the season, that's a big loss for the Tampa Bay Rays. He was a big piece of that Chris Archer trade. And if he's unable to go for the first couple of weeks, that's a huge loss for the Tampa Bay Rays.
It's an even bigger deal than Freddie Freeman in my mind because at least on the Braves, you have Acuna and you have Albies to hold it down.
Yeah.
On the Rays, they have a lot of good role players. They do.
Yes.
They're a very good team. I said they were a powerhouse last episode, but Austin Meadows is their guy. Austin Meadows put together a great season last year. And with the AL getting so tight and the teams getting so much better this year, especially in a 60-game season, we've alluded to this multiple times. It's going to be tight. It's going to be within 3 games at wild card.
For sure. Yep.
And I just really hope that their pitching can lead them to some wins in the first 2-3 weeks of the season. Who knows how many games he's going to miss? He just tested positive, and you have to get 2 negatives. Matt Thaiss, for example, from the Angels, he couldn't get a negative test for a month.
Yeah, for sure.
He tried to test for a month and could not get a negative.
Yeah.
So this is a possibility for Tampa. It's very unfortunate, but they do have great pitching. So hopefully the pitching can win them some ball games, and hopefully Meadows can come back and contribute Down the stretch.
So talking about Rendon a little bit more here, it's an oblique injury. You know how serious those are. You know, Chase Anderson, he's on the DL already with that oblique injury and the season hasn't even started. So with how serious that is, do you think the Angels will be extra precautionary with this, especially with how much money they gave this guy to be playing on the field?
Not really. I think if he misses opening day, he'll be in by Sunday, I believe.
Okay.
I don't see him missing substantial time based off of what he's telling the media. I understand from Joe Madden's point of not saying, I'm not sure if he'll be ready for opening day. I understand that because you don't want to say, oh, he'll be ready, and then he wakes up, he's sore that day. But I don't think that it's going to be – I think they're being precautious right now this week. Hopefully he jumps in some action on Wednesday against the Padres. They play him once more before the season starts. And hopefully he's ready to go. I think he will. If not, obviously the lineup drastically changes without him, but they will have Ohtani to hit behind him at least opening day, or hit behind Trout, I should say, opening day. If they don't have Rendon, and then Ohtani's expected to sit on Saturday, starting on Sunday. So hopefully he could be in there by Saturday at the latest.
Joining us now on the Chasing 2 podcast is former Phillies starter Dave Coggan. Dave, thanks for joining the podcast with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
So Dave, you were a three-sport athlete growing up. Was baseball always your first choice growing up?
The first sport, or the most I played, was probably soccer when I grew up. Travel soccer. I never played any travel baseball. I only did club soccer, I guess it was called at the time. Football-wise was probably my most passionate one, but I never played organized. It was just more street ball and play with your buddies down at the school and tackle football if you're out at the park, two-hand touch if you're out at the street, and then it was wiffle ball and then baseball. Those are my sports.
Yeah. So you were drafted in the first round in 1995 by the Phillies. What do you remember from that experience?
You know what? It's the whole year was pretty interesting. I'd given up soccer by that point because football was in the fall and it was beating me up pretty good. So I would have to take some breaks and then get ready for baseball. So at that time, football had kind of taken over pretty much on my recruiting and all the other stuff around it. People knew me more as a quarterback than even a baseball player. So went on my visits and ended up choosing Clemson to be quarterback there, and then also to play baseball there. But it was a football scholarship. And then baseball rolled around, and I ended up having a really good year. And teams were talking third round with me, and there wasn't as big buzz as there is nowadays, where you don't really have all these rankings and all this information ahead of time. So by the time the day came, I got a phone call, and they told me it's the Phillies, and we're picking you in the first round. And from there, the rest was history.
You went on to spend 3 seasons in Philly. Just kind of talk about your time there, and then you made your debut on June 23rd of 2000 against Vladimir Guerrero and the Expos. Take us through what that was like.
Yeah, so getting the call up was interesting. I was in Double-A, and I was coming up after a shoulder injury the year before surgery, and was coming back. And I was starting to kind of find my groove, pitch really well. And I got a call from Ruben Amaro, or actually Ed Wade, the GM at the time. Ed Wade said, hey, Dave, we're going to move you up to AAA. And I said, oh, this is cool. So I drove up because it was a day off. So the team in AAA was only about a 2-hour drive, and they were out of town. So I said, well, okay, I'll just drive up and check it out. And this is before cell phones and all that a lot of times. So I drive up there with my wife and I, and we brought our baseball bag. I packed all that up, and I said, well, I'll just drop it off in the locker room. And the GM there at the time kept kind of telling us, hey, we don't have a key for the locker room. We can't get you in right now. And I was just kind of, that's so odd, but all right, I'll keep my bag with me. So get back in my car and drive back down to Reading to where my apartment was in Double-A. And my phone has about 20 messages on it. And I call, and it's the Ed Wade, and he says, hey, Dave, how would you like to go to Montreal instead of Scranton? I was like, are you serious? So it was pretty cool. And we, went up there, and it's kind of an odd stadium. There's a huge stadium. There wasn't a lot of fans at the game. They were the GM, the coach said, hey, this is a great place to get your debut in. It's not as much nerves and all these kind silver linings. And then I was thinking to myself, I'm looking at the lineup and I'm going, that's the top hitting lineup in the National League. So they could say all they want about the fans, but that wasn't my problem. My problem was facing Vladimir and Jose Vidro and Michael Barrett, Cabrera, all these guys. And, luckily I got to win and got to win my get the W on my debut and enjoyed the rest of the trip, and it was fun.
So you have to tell us about the punch. You have to tell us about it. So how did this? How did it come up with Dan Plesac? Where did it come from? And walk us through it.
Yeah. So if you remember at Shea Stadium, the old Shea Stadium, old Mets Stadium, there was an area where the bullpens were. There is a cutout window. You see that in some of the bullpens in the big leagues. And so I'm standing there one day, and I was just right next to the window watching this third inning. And Pat Burrell hits a laser beam, line drive, didn't get out, but it hit off that plexiglass window real hard, bounced right back to the left fielder. It was Benny Agbiani, turns and one hops and threw out Pat at second base. So I thought, I'm like, oh man, that's going to be all over SportsCenter. And it was all over SportsCenter. And the funny part was I was standing there, so I could tell my boys, hey, check it out in the background where that ball hit the window. That's me standing there. So it got me thinking. I was like, man, what if something funny happened in the background that I could tell my boys, like, oh, hey, watch this, but look really far back there and see what happened, right? Yeah. So Dan Plesac came from the Blue Jays, and I could tell he was the kind of guy that was ready to do anything. So he was telling me stories of things he's done. So I gave him the idea. We had to plan it out. We had to sit next to each other all the time. You never know if the camera's on you. So we just kind of waited. And then sure enough, in San Diego, our first one, ball hit, Bobby Abreu comes swinging over. He's about 30, 40 feet in front of us. And Dan's has his fist like this, just looking at me. And I'm like this, looking up, but my eyes are watching when Bobby catches the ball. So I go, now, and bam, he gets into fake punch. And you can't see, but I had the lifesavers, those white lifesavers, so I shoot them out of my mouth too. So and we did it in Milwaukee. So if you get a chance,
I saw that one.
Yeah, I think that one's the best one, especially if you fast forward to the end and you see the whole thing in one shot. It's hilarious. So you got to watch that one. That's the Dave Coggan punch number 2, I think.
Yeah, I think that one's probably the Oscar-winning one.
Oh, I sure.
You went dove behind the bullpen bench there. That was pretty cool. Dave, unfortunately, you battled some shoulder problems, and I just want to ask you, what kind of sparked your interest in diving into the science, healthy arm action, and now you're starting at PFA, your own facility?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So that's exactly what happened. Really, it was my passion to try to keep these kids healthy and avoid the injuries in the path that I ended up going on, and also knowing that there had to be more than just fitness to it, and because I was probably the most fit player in the big leagues, right up there with some of the guys, Kyle Farnsworth and Scott Erickson, some of these guys who were just, Trevor Hoffman. I mean, nobody outworked me. I'm running stairs. I did everything. I lifted heavy. I lifted hard. I trained like a Navy SEAL, for God's sakes, and so when I got done playing and had all these injuries, I got to be connected with Tom House down at USC when I was looking for something to do. So literally Dan Geis, New York Yankees executive and former player for them, asked if I wanted to help out Tom down at USC. He was just starting this new thing up there. And it was a biomechanical lab, research, and working with TPI, the Titleist group, and Craig Rose and all these guys. So I was there, and I was just learning all about the slow motion analysis and the kinematic sequences and all these things. So it got me really interested in kind of asking more questions, forgetting what I thought I knew, and just kind of almost starting from scratch to see what would make sense. And then combine that with Tom. He was doing a ton of shoulder joint stability work and hip work, mobility work, and he started working with quarterbacks. And so I was down there and I was going, man, I like this. This is something that I can do where I can train multiple athletes, different sports. And once I did that, I opened up PFA and in a physical therapy friend of mine who had a physical therapy in Rancho Cucamonga called Team. He allowed me to come in when they closed at 7 o'clock. I would come in from 7 to 9 and run about a 2-hour workout. So that really took off and it was really successful. But the problem was that as people were wondering if you're supposed to be injured to be able to go to this or how it worked. And because at the time it was called Prevention Fitness for Athletes. That's what PFA stood for. So I switched the name to Performance Fitness for Athletes, and I was making sure everybody knew that, this is for athletes to avoid getting injured, not to get injured and try not to be injured again. So, so it took off, and we outgrew that spot. We outgrew the next spot, and hopefully we'll continue to grow as we add more and more things and get more into the mechanical side of things to get guys to move more efficiently and try to avoid injuries.
Dave, what would you say is a mechanical issue that you see not only in young players, but also in the professional and collegiate level? How do you go about evaluating them day one?
Yeah, so the biggest flaw that I've seen and was seeing early on was the arm path itself. So when I took a more critical look and kind of like took the layers off of, just general throwers and big leagues, and I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, these guys are big leaguers, but there's got to be something I can see that these windows, that they all do the same. And when I looked for that, it was even harder to look at that because there's so many different styles I'm watching. And I was thinking, okay, how do I narrow this down to make this easier for me to pick some windows to start training these young athletes? And what I figured out, and I just thought common sense wise, was, wait a second, let's not look at relievers. So let's eliminate relievers, because relievers are in that position for mostly negative reasons somewhere in their career. So they probably started as a starter, and then at some point, baseball, determined, the coaches determined, hey, you know what, you're really good in that first inning, but that second time through the lineup, you just struggle. Look at the numbers say, hey, you get lefties out, but you can't get righties out, or vice versa, or you continually get injured and you can never throw this many innings, and your velocity dips as the season goes. So these are not positive things. These aren't things that you would typically see as a starter who's going to be a starter in the big leagues for years and years and years. So instead of baseball needing to fix those guys or figure out maybe there's something wrong that they can work on, usually what they do, it's easy. They just move them to the bullpen. They give them a different job, and now they're okay. But their clock is starting to tick, and their career is starting to kind of really go quick. They might save it for a few years as a reliever, but the point being is that if you looked at starters need to do all those things in order to be successful. And I say to my kids all the time in my evals, I go, okay, listen, if you were your favorite team is the Dodgers, let's say, you might know the 3, 4, 5 starters on that team, but you probably don't know the Marlins or the Blue Jays or the Reds or whoever. Pick a team that's not your favorite team. You probably don't know who those 3, 4, 5 starters are, but you definitely start to know more than 1 and 2 starters almost every team. Mm-hmm. And the reason why you know those guys is because of the longevity of success that they've had. And you can look at the All-Star games. A lot of times now with the COVID thing going on, you see these reruns, and you see All-Star game from 2014, 2015, and 16. And the funny thing is you see the same starters in many of these games. Yeah. And you just see different relievers all the time, different relievers each year, because they're got issues. They're either arm issues, or they were really good and then they figured them out. So their careers tend to be kind of really up and down. But so then that told me, like, well, let's look at the number 1 and 2 starters, and let's also look at big leaguers that have played the game historically for a long time. Once I started doing that, I noticed that the arm path was very similar in all these guys. And it mimicked the throwing motion of what I call a natural throwing motion of a shortstop. He's the one person on the field, especially when you're younger, that could probably play every position if he wanted to. He can pitch, he can play catcher, he can play outfield, and he's not the one that gets over top. He's not the one that's doing drills and drills and drills among drills on to strengthen his arm or to quote unquote get better pitching mechanics. So he's a very hands-off type of person. So he becomes a natural thrower. So to me, it was more about unwinding all the poor teaching, the poor cues of a lot of the coaching that I see. And we started to create really like monsters. I mean, we started to get draft picks, and it was crazy when I turned from just trying to fix everything, lower half problem, a glove problem, a head problem, a momentum, a legs, and all those things. And I learned, wait a minute, let's start with the arm path first, then go to all those. So it wasn't that the arm path is more important than the landings or the lower half or the hips. It was just that it was more important to teach it first, then go to the other things, because it was way more effective to do it that way. And it was a much faster learning time for these guys.
Yeah, that's really interesting stuff. Can you tell us about the pocket, whip, and stick method that you teach?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's the three windows that I started to kind of see, right? It was the pocket is the arm path generally. Basically what the arm path means is not creating a ball dominant delivery. And the reason it's called pocket is one day as I was studying these shortstops, like I told you, are these long career pitchers who, no pitcher lengthens their career by lengthening their arm path. You'd always see those guys getting closer to center of the source. But the other part of it, though, is you would see a sequence that I saw too. It wasn't just get short. That's the big mistake a lot of guys make. It was the pattern and the sequence that they did it on. And that's where we started to kind of tap into the pocket stuff. So pocket meant I had a ball in my pocket, literally in my front of my pocket, and I pulled it out of my pocket and threw in one motion. When I did that, because the ball was in my pocket, it forced me to let my elbow go first, and then my hips went, and the arm just flipped out and laid back. And when I timed that beautifully, I was like, wow, my arm feels that's the best my arm's felt in a long time. And so that's the pocket. It could be different from everybody except for the sequence. The sequence and position is what's important. So it could be a little shorter guy, it could be a little bit longer, but as long as those are in sequence, that's the big key to it. Whip is sort of the kind of subtle but very, very important piece. And that's just part of the layback, getting into detail. I don't go too much detail into that, but that's kind of the bread and butter of what makes the pocket and what makes the spin rate go higher. That's what makes the vertical ride, makes all the things that these markers that teams are noticing that our guys have abnormally high numbers compared to the whole group of pitchers that they see. And then stick's going to be the landing. So landing is just so important because of the way your leg braces, when your hips turn, all those things have pretty clear markers of what to look for. So we've just identified easy windows that make it very easy to be able to see what part of the windows he needs to work on. And typically we always check off the first box first. That's the arm path, pocket, and then it moves down to the landings in the lower half after that, which is the way we hit it.
How difficult is it to not try to fix everybody in the same way? Was it difficult in the beginning when you first started evaluating?
Yeah, there's two things to think about that. There's the physical way of doing that, and then the mental way of doing that. So the physical side of things, it's pretty easy to see a lot of these windows when you get it explained to you and you go through one of our evaluations. You can really see it, pretty obvious. But then, so that gives us a good blueprint on how to start the sequence and start teaching it. The real challenge, I think the real secret sauce is learning the mindset of when to teach certain things, when to not teach certain things. If I see a guy who's has a terrible lower half, he's doing some things wrong, but I see his catch play first look even worse with his arm path. So I want to get his arm path catch play right. Then I get him on the mound. And then once I get that, he's already got that sequence. So he knows that if he looks at the video of him pitching and it looks completely different than what we were just working on in catch play, which is a lot easier place to teach, less complicated, less stride, a lot of things are easier to time there, then he can already have a little knowledge to be able to adjust something. So that gives us a good head start there. Then, you figure out, okay, what part do I need to teach? Is his head posture going to the left because his ankle is kicking hard to the left side? It's all kind of tied together. And I've seen, people try to speed people up, and that doesn't work. I've seen people go for a longer stride. I've seen that, cause all kinds of issues. And, the thing about what I have an advantage is we have a lot of kids that are high school and junior high and youth. And those guys aren't strong enough to do it wrong yet. Mm-hmm. So when you fix a guy like that and they become better than these other guys who are more talented at the moment, or at least on the surface they look like that, that's when you know you're onto something. But when you take a big leaguer who can really do some odd things and still get back to positions, it's sometimes hard to change something on him, because he might be somewhat successful or in his mind as successful as he can be. But a lot of these guys just don't know what they don't know yet. And the younger kids really show us what to teach the older guys.
Dave, with all the technology in baseball now, when you look at the analytics in baseball now, how do you interpret numbers from the Rapsodo into your teachings?
Yeah, that's been actually kind of new to me. And what's kind of interesting is that we were doing things just on our visual, just our methodology and our principles. What we were seeing when we did that were the numbers that teams were getting from our players were really elevated. They're really high. They're coming back from the off season and they added 2 to 3 inches of vertical ride, or they spin was higher than everybody. So we kept saying that as a common theme. It was almost like a joke. It was like, oh, another one? Okay. and we could see it. We could feel it. I knew exactly what it looked like when they did it, when they got into the pocket really well, when they stayed in the whip position, and when they got the stick. When they got all 3 windows, I mean, it was really cool to see the numbers come to me from them. Then it was now this offseason, we actually have the Rapsodo, and this has been fun because all our guys are pretty high level, and now we can start to turn a wrist in a little bit, or we can change a grip, we can position differently, or we can cue someone like one of our pitchers, Tyler Lawson, was fun to watch. He came in at like probably 81, 82 before our league started with the Rapsodo, and he was, and this might have been a month or 2 before, and it was a hot mess. He was just fast out of it. It wasn't all together. And we created his mindset to be calm, relaxed. Don't try to throw as hard yet until you get the right positions. Then we got his arm path in the right spot. So now it turned into learning how to get sticky, which is the back hip turning and going quicker. We call that cutting corners faster. So he did that, and all of a sudden, boom, he's hitting every single week 2 more miles an hour, another mile an hour, another mile an hour, to the point where he hit 90 miles an hour, almost 91. And that was the best velocity he's put up since maybe forever. I don't know, maybe his freshman year at Columbia State. So this is like 3 or 4 years of college. You'd think as you get stronger and older, you throw harder. But if you don't stick with the discipline of these windows, you can really get off track. So he was really off track. We got him back on. And then, okay, now he wanted to kind of get a little more elevation. So we started to get his hand in a better position. Try that. Did that help him? Yeah, it helped him. All right, let's work on this breaking ball. So that's where the Rapsodo came in. It's justified the things that we do now. So I'm really confident now because of that. And then, I've only been able to say I'm positive, but now I'm super confident because now I see it, and Dylan, you work the numbers on the Rapsodo. You've seen our pitchers. So you can definitely see that there's a common thread when you see a pitcher who hasn't worked with us and one that has.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's been a privilege just learning from you, just in general. But, to go over the numbers and talk about them and then incorporate it into, helping guys with healthier mechanics, it's been awesome. Yeah. It's been a great experience for me.
It's fun for all of us.
Yeah. So tell us about the Pocket Path, your new invention.
Yeah. So this is what's cool. I'm pretty, we're close to launching something. I think it's going to, revolutionize the teaching at the youngest age, and then also change the game up at the top, where I think there's going to be some needs for this. But it's a wearable technology. It's something that can help sequence and guide the arm into the right path and create a really great delivery without the, just the ball dominant feeling. And once you get that on, we see our kids do this. I've been using it for 2 years, so it's nothing new to me, but it's going to be neat to kind of show it on the market. I've been to about half dozen major league teams over the last probably like 3 or 4 months, showing them this, sending videos, sending scouts, sending player directors, and it's been cool to see their reaction, their jaw drops when they see how simple the idea is and how effective it is. And then they kind of put it all together and they go, oh my God, now I see why all your guys have these nice clean arms and these healthy arm paths. And so we're close to launch, and that's going to be with the whole thing. It's going to have videos. It's going to have explanations of everything. It's going to have plyo balls. It's going to have anything a young parent or a coach or even a pro guy is going to need to easily change their arm path to an arm path that's going to create less arm injuries and higher numbers on lift and spin and everything. It's been really cool. We're excited to get it launched.
Hey Dave, two-part question here before we kind of wrap up. What was your favorite ballpark to pitch in, and what was a hitter that you went up against, and you're like, oh boy, I got to go against this guy tonight?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. And I know the answer to both of them pretty easily. Dodger Stadium was the stadium that it was amazing to be there. That was like the most special one because I've been a Dodger fan my whole life, and I got to pitch there. I got the W. That was really neat. The one I was most nervous at, or just like kind of awestruck, was Yankee Stadium, the old Yankee Stadium, and against that lineup was a really good lineup then at the time. So those two stadiums by far stick in my head. But the the hitters that stood out to me the most, there's two of them, and I was big fans of them anyway going up because I've collected their cards, was Frank Thomas and Mark McGwire. So those two, and it was a combination of me collecting their cards, but also just the massive humanity that these two guys look like when they're up at the plate. I mean, I got up there, especially with Frank, and I got up, I got the ball back from Scott Roll on third base, and I get up there, and I'm like, okay, Frank Thomas is hitting. And I just see him up there, and I'm like, oh, my God, he's huge. He looked so big, and he was so far off the plate, so I was like, there's no way. I should be able to throw a fastball away, but I'm supposed to throw a fastball in. And I'm looking at him going, he's going to kill that ball because he's so far off the plate. It was really, gosh, that was a mind game. And then the same with McGwire. McGwire's just up there, finished up hitting the 70 home runs or 72. And just an icon, and it was just like a surreal. He was almost like a superhero that was up there. It was kind of neat. So those are two. Those are the most memorable players that I've ever faced.
Okay.
All right. Well, Dave, I alluded to it earlier. I'm just very blessed to work with you. I cannot, words. I have no words for you for how thankful I am to work with you. It's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to continue to grow. Thank you again for coming on.
You got it, man. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks. That's Dave Coggan, and hopefully we can have you back on in the future, Dave. Appreciate that.
Yeah, of course, man. Anytime.
Okay, Dylan, what was your biggest takeaways from the Dave Coggan interview? For me, I think it was just how in-depth he went, talking about the pocket path and talking about what he sees problems with young arms, even major league arms. I don't know much stuff about that kind of stuff, but so it was really fascinating to see just to hear the passion that he had talking about that stuff.
Yeah, Dave's definitely a passionate guy. Obviously, I work with him every single day. Sometimes he's not there, and I work just with the college guys. When he's not there, just going over numbers, and I explain them spin rate, ball direction, and horizontal and vertical, going through that stuff with the players. But for the most part, I do get to see his teachings and observe. And the guy knows his stuff. He knows how to mentally – something that we did talk about, but he really does know how to mentally help guys. And just being – for example, he brought up Tyler Lawson, a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
How Tyler went from 80 to 90.
Yeah.
Well, every time he throws, he goes one more mile more. It's just that little increment of just a little bit more that makes the difference and really builds confidence in a guy's head.
Yeah, definitely. And it was awesome for him to come on. We were only expecting maybe 10, 15 minutes, and he gave us 25, almost 30 minutes. So for him to dive into talking about him playing travel soccer and him getting drafted in the first round, and then jumping into making his debut against Vlad Guerrero in the Expos, and the story he got when he got called up, it was just awesome. And we thank Dave for coming on the pod, and what a treat this was for a second episode.
Yeah, awesome guy. Can't say anything, I can't say anything bad about this guy. He knows his stuff. I'm telling you, if you guys live in the Inland Empire area, check out PFA. You can come see me. I'm not really the best guy to see, but check it out. Dave will impact your life for sure. On the mound and then off, just being a great person to talk to and confiding.
And another story we got here that came out this week, Daniel Bard makes the Rockies opening day roster. He hasn't pitched in the majors since 2013 with the Boston Red Sox. It's an interesting story. I watched the video on it. He had a 2.88 ERA in a span of 3 seasons with the Red Sox, and then everything just kind of fell off the tracks. He dealt with yips. He couldn't throw a strike. He was up and down, AAA to the majors, and then he just stopped playing baseball. And what brought him back was he got a job in baseball, and he was just playing catch with some of the guys on the team, and he just kind of fell back in love. And he said, okay, throwing a baseball is easy now. And he started his recovery and his comeback. And man, for him to make the Rockies opening day roster, who knows, maybe he even gets to start opening day. I don't know. But what a cool story this is.
Yeah, ironically too, he became a mental skills coach with the Diamondbacks. So it's great that he took his failure and made a positive out of it, and now he's back. And I really hope that he succeeds. About starting opening day, I'm not sure. I think they're going to use him as a reliever, if I'm correct.
Okay.
I know he relieved with Boston, but maybe an opener at some point.
Yeah. No, and sticking with relievers here, 2 of the 3 pieces that were in that super pen for the Rockies got released. Jake McGee and Brian Shaw announced yesterday that they're going to be gone and cut from the team. It was reported, John Heyman reported before we recorded this episode, Brian Shaw is going to be signing a deal with the Mariners, and Jake McGee, it's going to be interesting to see where he goes because he's still a good lefty out of the pen. It's going to be interesting to see. Blue Jays, man, they need a lefty desperately. So, they only got Pannone as a lefty there. So, he played lots of his time in the AL East. I could see him maybe going to Toronto. Also, like you said before the episode, he could go to the West Coast too. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he'll stay West Coast. There are plenty of teams, A's, Angels, Astros, Dodgers. They need left-handers.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much the Dodgers. They have Alexander.
Yeah.
But the Angels, they have Ryan Buckner on a minor league deal. Give McGee a minor league deal. He's got the experience with Joe Madden in Tampa. So there's a little connection there. And then the A's would be awesome for the A's. Their bullpen is usually pretty solid, and to add that guy on a bounce back, hey, gets out of Coors Field, might turn it around and be just as productive as he was before. So, and then the Astros. I don't know how many guys want to go sign with the Astros right now, but hey, if they put him in the back end of that bullpen,
with Osuna,
solid.
Yeah, for
solid.
Sure.
And even Davinsky on a bounce back. There's some guys that need a bounce back in that pen, but Joe Smith just opted out, so there's a place to replace him. So,
yeah, definitely. Let's talk about opening day. The New York Yankees versus the Washington Nationals. I'm going to take the Nationals in this one. It's going to be a good game, I think. You got Scherzer versus Cole. Cole making his first start with the New York Yankees. I just think that the Nationals, I think they're going to take this one. What do you think?
I got the Yankees. I think Garrett Cole's looked super sharp in the videos I've seen on Twitter, even on MLB Network lately. Garrett Cole.
Just disrespecting his teammates, man. Giving them bad confidence to start the year, man. Wow.
Yeah, he's just been shoving it in Yankee Stadium, and he looks solid. He looks like his velocity's up. Everything looks sharp from what they've showed us. So, Scherzer, he got knocked around a little bit by the Phillies the other night. Yep. Hopefully it was just a, summer camp type of deal where it was just, a little trial he had to go through. But, I see the Yankees winning it opening day with Garrett Cole's debut. He's going to be a man on a mission. Nats coming off that World Series win. Who knows if they'll have the World Series hangover. Obviously it's just opening day, but, World Series hangover, it kind of is a thing. So, across the country, we got Dodgers and Giants. I got the Dodgers winning that. Kershaw's on the mound.
Yeah, no disrespect to Giants fans, but the Dodgers versus the Giants, it's a big difference in skill there. It's probably going to be what, Kershaw versus Johnny Cueto, if I had to guess?
Yes, that is the matchup from what I saw.
And then getting into pitching matchups, Ryu, Morton, that's going to be a good pitching matchup. You got Berrios versus Giolito. What are a couple of pitching matchups you're looking forward to seeing, Dylan?
Well, I brought it up a little bit earlier, Soroka and DeGrom. That one's going to be a good one. The Mets could be good. We talked about this last pod. Yeah. The Mets, if they get hot and DeGrom's on his game and he's not injured, they could surprise some people. I also have Bumgarner and Paddock.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That one's a good one. And then the last one I had was Woodruff, who had a great year last year against Kyle Hendricks. The Brewers are going to have to rely on Brandon Woodruff.
Yeah,
the Brewers lost Moustakas, and they replaced him with, Justin Smoke's production, who I know you love him. He was with the Jays last year, but he didn't have a great year last year. It was subpar, and you lost Moustakas, and they brought in Eric Sogard and Asbayo Garcia. It wasn't the greatest offseason for them, but they're trying to get role players. And, just like the Rays, they succeed on role players. So who knows? It's a very tight division. You know how I feel about the Reds. So we'll see how it goes. I think Brandon Woodruff could be the game changer for them, and obviously a healthy Christian Yelich.
What do you got for the last out?
We got Shohei Ohtani coming back Sunday. It's going to be – I'm super excited to see this. I'm sure plenty of baseball fans are excited to see him back on the mound. Just a great talent. I'm excited to see what he can do. It's been since 2018, so see what happens.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to stick with my favorite team too. I'm going to go with Hyun-Jin Ryu. There's been a lot of hype about this guy up in Toronto, and we haven't had a pitcher like this in a long time. Like a guy that can give you 7-8 innings every single night. It's going to be good to have, and hopefully gets off to a good start. But I just want to let the listeners know we are on Apple Podcasts now. We're on Spotify now. And, of course, we are on YouTube. If you can just like and subscribe to us. Now you can take us on the road. Throw us on in the car. If you're driving, turn it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We would appreciate that if you guys could help us out and subscribe to us.